Okay, today we are going to cover the term or the concept capital flows. And I have put down here a couple things that I think are good for us to know about what capital flows really represents. Capital flows are really the flow of savings between two countries. Um, and a good rule to live by when we're talking about two countries and interest rates, that's when we see these capital flows happen, is that money is always going to flow to the country that has the highest interest rate. So when you have two countries that have different interest rates, okay, we need to understand that savers are going to look for the best place to save. And the best place to save is always the place where you can find the highest interest rate. That means you can get the greatest return on your savings. And so for that reason, then, savers are always going to try to find the place, whether it's in the United States or outside the United States, the place where they can get the highest return. So money will always flow to the country that has the highest interest rate. And when we're talking about capital flows or this flow of savings between two countries, we're talking about changing the supply of loanable funds on the loanable funds graph. So I think the best way to look at this scenario is to have an example. So in our example, the interest rate in the United States is increasing compared to Mexico. Okay, and so again, we go up to our notes above, and it says that money always flows to the country that has the highest interest rate. Okay, so it looks like the highest interest rate then is the United States. Okay, so that means that people from all over the world, in this scenario, it's going to be Mexico, want to save in the U.S. So we have to remember in our loanable funds graph, the two curves, the demand and the supply curve, represent the amount of borrowing and the amount of saving. Okay, well, we know that people in Mexico are going to want to save in the U.S. So this change in interest rate is going to draw savings to the United States, which means that the supply of loanable funds in the United States is going to increase. And when that happens, the supply curve shifts to the right, and we can see that that's going to cause the interest rate in the United States to decrease. Now, this action of savings moving to the United States, we call this an inflow or a capital inflow. Money is flowing into the U.S. Now, at the same time, we have to understand that each country has their own loanable funds market, their own market for savers and borrowers. So the first graph is the U.S. loanable funds market. The second graph is the Mexican loanable funds market. So if people in Mexico are saving in the United States, that means that savings are leaving Mexico. So I'm going to shift the supply curve, the amount of savings, to the left for Mexico's loanable funds market, which is going to cause the interest rate to increase. And when this happens, when this money leaves Mexico, we call this an outflow. And so whenever we're talking about capital flows, we're really talking about money just being saved in other countries. And we're going to see that money will always flow to the country with the highest interest rate, which creates an inflow and an increase in supply of loanable funds. And then the other country that has the lower interest rate, it creates an outflow. And that's a decrease in supply of loanable funds. And so this is the concept of capital flows and how it relates to the loanable funds market.